hold space for your darkness, a first responder mental health podcast hosted by me, Erin Jane, where we have conversations about what it's like to perform a first responder role and the mental health challenges that can accompany it. Hello and welcome to another episode of I Will Hold Space for Your Darkness, a first responder mental health podcast. I'm your host, Erin Jane, and today I am joined by a repeat guest, the lovely Mr. Travis Gribble. Travis is a 24-year law enforcement veteran, having worked in Michigan and Arizona, which also included duties as a SWAT team leader. He's been influential in the first responder mental health and wellness community, advocating for and sharing psychoeducation to troops and administrations alike, through sharing his own vast experience and with the help of clinicians to break down the complexities of mental health assistance needed for our people. He did this via his organization, which was called My Arena, and has now transitioned into a current role with the Boulder Crest Foundation, where their focus is on post-traumatic growth. So thank you for joining us today, Travis.
So it's been a minute.
It has. So we were just discussing offline and I had to go back and look it up. So Travis was so kindly, when I started this podcasting endeavor, one of my very, very first guests. So if anyone hasn't listened, you can go back to episodes 5 and 6 and check out our very first conversation and hear a little bit more about Travis's story and experiences with his law enforcement career. And we talked a lot more about My Arena then too. But yeah, today's kind of a little bit more of a catch up. So I think would it be 2 or 3 years later now?
Maybe 2 years. 2 years since we talked. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So today's kind of almost just like a bit of a catch up, which is a personal highlight for me, because I am a big Travis fan. But essentially as well, Travis has gone through a few like big transitions lately, and we were even discussing offline the fact that sort of a lot of people have probably reached out in the last few weeks to kind of go, well, what's going on? So talk to me about where you're at and what sort of happened over the last couple of years for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So as you mentioned, I still have an organization that I haven't completely shut it down called My Arena. And I started that, I guess back in officially September of 2022, I guess is what it was. And after I had retired from law enforcement earlier that year in 2022, and just it was by no planning of my own, just someone had asked me to speak regarding the mental health struggles that I had during my career, that, for the entirety of my career, I wasn't open about it. But then, as it will do if you don't take care of it, it punched me in the face and I had to get some, right? I began, with My Arena, and like you can go back to the last episode and hear a lot more about it, but doing public speaking all over the country, consulting with agencies. Just, I guess if you had asked me back then, my main point was to get across to organizations and specifically individual first responders that the post-traumatic stress is a thing. You're going to deal with just a lot of trauma that if you're not taking care of yourself appropriately, these are the things that could happen, and I was a perfect example. And the whole point of my going out and speaking was just to share my story. Say, hey, this is what happened to me. I was super vulnerable, which, I'm still fine to be, and share, what went on with me and be open and honest in hopes of someone would hear that message and they're like, okay, maybe I should go talk to someone as well. Right. So that's where it started. And that carried me through until, just a lot, I guess, has happened. If you want me to transition into like the previous, I guess this started, and I knew I was coming on here. I'm like, when did exactly this thing start,
Yeah.
And I can actually trace it back to the beginning of 2023. I heard a podcast with a guy by the name of Dr. Chris Free that wrote a book called
Operator Syndrome. I have it on my bedside table. Yeah.
So I read that, and it was the first time I'd ever heard anyone say that maybe, when we are diagnosing, he was specifically talking about veterans on this
Hmm.
podcast, but he did mention that this is the same for first responders, right?
Yeah.
That just by the mere product of our training and what that creates in us, you
Hmm.
could actually label that as PTSD based on what the DSM says, right?
Hmm.
So it was a very interesting. I was like, man, it's super thought provoking, and I would
Yeah.
say that probably started my journey of what does this all look like?
Hmm.
And my old department, Mesa PD in Arizona, they were one of the departments in Arizona that had adopted a program called Struggle Well through Boulder Crest Foundation. And
Hmm.
someone had mentioned it to me. So all these little seeds have been planted throughout the
Yeah.
time. And, like it always happens. And so I knew of Boulder Crest, but then someone connected me, and I was actually invited to go to a program, one of their immersive programs for first responders in
Hmm.
Texas. And
Yep.
I'd never been to a program like this. The only thing I'd done, I was in great therapy doing EMDR that
Hmm.
really, it gave me a lot of settling from specific traumatic incidents that I had had and specific sticking points, as you and your listeners know that we have.
Hmm.
But I went to this program. It wasn't a retreat. It wasn't any sort of therapy or anything. It was training,
Yep.
which was close to my heart because being, working SWAT for all those years, training was incredibly important to me. And
Hmm.
I'd never seen anything like this because I can be honest with you, Aaron, that is even after I went through all my therapy, I was still having even doing the public speaking, having some very difficult days
Yeah.
to where I'd wake up at home and just be angry or be depressed and like, wow, what's going on? Like, and
Yep.
I honestly, I guess I bought into is almost an excuse a little bit like, well, I've been diagnosed with PTSD and this just must be the consequence of that. And this
Hmm.
is as good as it's going to get. Right. And
Yeah.
so this training it showed me so many different things of how to actually take a different perspective, look at um, many things that have happened in my life, not only professionally but personally, and gain a new perspective
Hmm.
and not waste those times. I guess that if that would be to where you just look back like, oh, I never, that was horrible, and all you see is the bad instead of and shifting your perspective
Hmm.
to say like, okay, I went through that. Obviously, I didn't want to go through that, but what could I have learned? What can I learn through that? And how can I come out on the other side stronger than ever? Right.
Yep.
So yeah, I came out of there, and that became my, started my journey with, I wanted to do, somehow get connected with Boulder Crest, and um, yeah, I started actually coming up through the Struggle Well side, which is a 5-day program they do, and they have a 2-day and a as well, to where it's with inside an agency like my Mesa police department and departments all over the country now.
Yep.
They, they have these programs, and so that's how I came up, got trained, and then I've had this opportunity to now work in one of the immersive programs for first responders,
Hmm.
and yeah, it was just it's an amazing experience, and some of that came from, I guess. And if you have questions, go ahead. I'm talking too much.
No, no, you are more than fine. I'll hit you up. Don't worry.
Well, one of the things that I love going around and speaking all over the country. That was an amazing opportunity to connect
Hmm.
with people for one
Yeah.
day, right? The worst part about that is then I left them. And
Yeah.
like, I would always be prepared with resources, whether it was connected with a therapist in the area or these
Hmm.
programs. Here's
Yep.
some phone numbers, some websites, but that's it. And then you're
Yeah.
gone. I would have numerous conversations. People would reach out afterwards, and they're just like, now what? And
Yeah.
it's like I felt this empty space. And so this gave me the opportunity. And almost, this is funny, I was thinking about it today. I probably almost did this in reverse order, to where I was out doing this public speaking thing, and now I went back into, per se, like, I guess, the boots on the ground,
Yep.
getting into the mix of this connection thing. So, but it's, I just love having the opportunity to do it. and being able to, take our first responders and veterans through this training. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
been amazing.
Oh, that's awesome. And I love that for you too, because I think as well, probably something that we discussed in our previous conversations and probably conversations we've had like privately offline too. There is I think there's a weight and a heaviness when you go around and share your story and experiences, and especially some of the very heavy and traumatic ones that have been like a part of your career, and that you have been gracious enough to share with, the first responder community. Like, I feel like that, would easily reactivate you, and some days would, water off a duck's back, and other days just be incredibly impactful. So it doesn't actually surprise me that, you turn around and be like, it was kind of getting too much at certain times.
Yeah, at certain times it definitely could. Sometimes I'd schedule like back-to-back speaking events, like
Yeah.
for a couple different days. I'm like, man, this is super heavy.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was also healing for me for sure to be able to share my story, right? But
Yeah. Yeah. The
it was
catharsis
definitely,
would be definitely there.
yeah, but it was definitely heavy at times. And then just, you know, it was just a perfect transition and something I'm
Mm-hmm.
super passionate about. Like I love training because of my background, and now I'm trained. I'm just in a different role, right?
Yeah.
Still, I kind of consider I'm still in the fight with our first responders. Like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm going to train you to go back because you can come to me for program or whatever it is, but you're going to go back to what you left. And
Mm-hmm.
so, which is super unique about our program because not only is it those 5 days, it's actually extends for 90 days. So we
Yeah.
do training with them throughout 90 days. So to establish some consistency, to be there for them as a team, and as we guide them
Mm-hmm.
to what obstacles they're experiencing when they get home. So just it's an amazing program that I've seen tremendous life change, and yeah, it's a great thing.
Yeah. And I commend you so much for being so open about, because I remember when you were posting on social media when you actually went through the program yourself, and that was one of the things that I sort of wanted to inquire about, because that's what I love. Like, a lot of and to take nothing away from any sort of inpatient behavioral health programs that are out there, because I think everything has its place, and on a continuum of care, subjectively different people need different things. But it's one of the aspects of the program, because I, slightly stalkerish looked into it after, you'd been a part of it. And like, other guests have also been a part of it too. Like Vance Rowe, I know, is now a fellow guide there. And Chris Martinez, I think, had attended it. And I'm probably forgetting someone. So if I am, I apologize. But that was one of those aspects that I loved. It's like you have that immersive experience, and we've all done those kinds of things, that those group dynamics, and you walk away with such like an impactful experience, but then there's kind of nothing, and we all make those promises, yeah, let's keep in touch and whatever else. But when you're saying like you're trying to teach people how to change their perspective on their life experiences, and trauma exposure, and maybe the way that they think about things and all that kind of thing, that extended support, like you're saying, it's 5 days together, but an extended support structure afterwards, because that is when everything that we've learned and everything that is new gets challenged, when we're outside of that little bubble that we created. So I that's like an aspect of it that I really loved, because it's going to help cement it for the people who are wanting to make those changes in their lives.
Yeah, and I think that's huge. We tell participants, and this is like anything, right? I mean, whether it's your journey for weight loss or your journey for what, I don't care, financial,
Yeah.
wellness, whatever it is, it's up to you, right? You
Mm-hmm.
have, one of the books, Viktor Frankl talks about the power of choice, right? It's really the only freedom that we have, that no one can ever take away from us, no matter
Mm-hmm.
our circumstances, right? So that power of choice. Like, it's up to you. Here's what you can do. Now you go out and do it. So,
Yeah.
um, that's what I love about it. I just, it's an amazing thing. And it's so needed in our first responder world because
Mm-hmm.
we are a product of our training, and you're some of the, most of the things that we're trained in, if we act like that over in our personal lives and when we walk through the door of our home, it does not go so well, right?
No.
We need to learn how to, we like to say, put on a dimmer switch, take it down a few notches and
Yeah.
understand, but then also understanding that our first responders have this incredible skill set that if you learn how to hone that to also work within your personal life,
Yeah.
you can be an amazingly strong person.
Yeah.
I think I was looking it up one time, and I mean, if you take a class of first responders, whatever group, dispatchers, firefighters, volunteer firefighters, police officers, dispatch, all that, correctional
Mm-hmm.
officers, we're like 0.004% of the population. And you think about that, and the skill set that we learn just by the product of our training and going out and doing the job every day is
Mm-hmm.
pretty damn awesome.
Yeah.
That we just have to learn how to rehone it to certain situations, right? So,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things that I love, that our training program, we're filling in those gaps. Like, hey, this is what happened, and just so you know, and nothing's wrong with you. You aren't a bad person. Something bad happened, whether it's professionally, personally, all this. Now, how do you work through that and shift your perspective? So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the quotes that is, it's in the Travis and I were just talking. I have the post-traumatic growth workbook because I am a nerd, and I bought this probably about 2 or 3 years ago and worked through it myself. And even like for me in my life, sort of recognized I had unknowingly and unwittingly sort of gone through a post-traumatic growth experience, but didn't realize it at the time. And I was like, oh, I'm like, that's what it's called. Like, that's awesome. But one of the sort of quotes that people often like talk about is our response is, it's a normal response to an abnormal event.
yep, yeah,
Because the things that we see, like you more in particular than probably me, given the length of your career, but there are things that people wouldn't actually believe us if we told them.
right, yeah,
And so to have a reaction to the things that seemingly just seem like a made up scenario or situation, I think we are our own harshest critics and judges, because
oh yeah,
we want to just have that suck it up, harden up attitude. And that's great in the moment when we have to, strap up and do our role. But there's the aftermath, that if we don't look after ourselves appropriately, that's when we fall into
yeah.
strife.
No, I love that. I mean, that is a perfect example, because a lot of times if we don't know what this looks like and people around you don't understand what that looks like, then it's like the questions of what's wrong with you. No, it's nothing. Nothing's wrong with you. It's what happened to you. Let us explain that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's so funny. Like, yeah, there are appropriate times where I have to shut off emotions and just get to work and do the job. And I love to you know give this example, like obviously domestic violence calls we go to all the time, right? You walk
Mm-hmm.
in, it's this chaos, people are screaming, and like you're stone cold. You're just there to like figure out, is there an aggressor? Who's the suspect? Do I have to take somebody to jail
Yeah.
tonight? What is all
Crime
this?
being committed, all of the
Right?
things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all that stuff. And you can't be emotionally reacting, or you wouldn't be good at your job, right? But
Mm-hmm.
then, after shift is over and you come home and your partner or spouse has been home with the kids all day and they're just complete chaos, whatever's going on, and you're just like, yeah, I'm not going to react and I'm stone cold. Like, that's not going to go over well, right? But it just worked for us for 10 hours prior to that. Why isn't it working now? So
Exactly.
it's just, that's where that training comes in of understand. It's more of a understanding, right? We have to know the why, right?
Yeah.
Everything starts. If we don't know the why, then we can't get to the other side of it. So the
Yeah.
education piece and helping people learn and understand is so important, of why
Yeah.
these things, why you are the way you are.
Exactly. And that there's nothing inherently wrong with it. I think it's also comes down to just understanding it, that like not only do we go through training to be a police officer, firefighter, dispatcher, corrections, AMBO, EMT, paramedic, all of the things, like it's also about how our mind and our body gets trained over time to respond to the kind of stimuli that we see, and then how that becomes our normal natural response, and which can maybe serve us in the moment but can end up being maladaptive over either a longer time frame, or it doesn't like you were saying, doesn't translate well into our private life.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, when I was doing, my speaking events and stuff, I always talk
Mm-hmm.
about my boys, because I've had to make some amends because I thought, well, Travis is a pretty damn good SWAT guy. So those skills must translate into being a good dad, right? And so at times I'm too harsh, or this has got to be exactly the same way. But I wasn't understanding, like, no, those skill sets, yeah, of course, if you're running now it makes so much sense and
Yeah.
sense to me, but in the moment it doesn't, right? But yeah, of course those skills are important during a SWAT operation. That has to be this, and this. But the 3 and 4 year old, they don't have, like, no, they're not going to understand that, right? Or
Yeah.
even be able to receive what you're trying to teach them, even maybe if it was good intentions, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean it's just a learning, and I think we're getting there. We're starting to, and that's one of the transitions too for me. I think from walking away, I mean, I don't know. I know there was people probably out talking, before I started doing it. It seems like there's a lot of people in the space now. I felt like that I was at the point where, like, okay, I've done what I wanted to do. I definitely made people aware of it as much as I could touch them, right? That, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
this is a thing. This is a thing we have to address. I think I had talked to many organizations and
Yeah.
preached that gospel of what leadership has to do and this and that. And so now is a transition, like almost like, okay, we've identified what's going on here. Now what? And that's why I've loved this transition of, like, getting back into, like, okay, now we're going to get into training. Like,
Yep.
this is how we're going to change. I mean, I firmly believe I look out ahead like 10 years from now. Okay, we're going to change this culture. We really are, to where it's going to be accepted, that this is going to be like, yeah, this is just what we do, right? I was just talking to a buddy of mine back from my old department. We were talking about struggle well today. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we're doing it pre-academy. We're doing it,
Wow.
for field training officers. I'm like, yes, like this
That's
is the way we
amazing.
change it, you
Yeah.
know? And so, and it's not that the older guys don't want to hear it, because, man, if there's anything I could say to the old dogs like me, so many people come through our programs that are 45 and 50 plus years of age that are like,
Mm-hmm.
shit, I wish I'd have had this training at the
Yeah.
beginning of my career.
Yeah.
All these things have happened because I didn't know how to handle what was going on inside. And
Mm-hmm.
just, you look back and it's like a train wreck,
Yeah.
which I do, and
Yeah.
that's why I encourage, like, people, like, take care of your stuff now, get into some training like this, do whatever it is. If the therapist isn't your thing, do an EMDR, whatever it is, get in there and
Mm-hmm.
do the work, right? You
Yeah.
don't want to look back and be like, damn it, I wish I would have, thought this way 20 years ago.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think it's funny with our population because we do hard things or seemingly hard things to external people. Like, even like my husband say would be like perfect example. Like he would be like have like the lowest BP you could imagine and like march on into like a building that was on fire, and he'd be like, all right, after this we'll go for lunch, and like be as calm as anything. But yeah, like, ask him like to discuss his feelings, he'd be like, fuck.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
we do seemingly hard things that would be considered hard to external people, but then for us it's breaking down that barrier to talk about our feelings can actually be harder for us than facing an angry man with a weapon or running into a burning building, because it's that I guess that juxtaposition where we fight against our own survival mechanisms and fear to do the hard things that we're trained to do. But I think that invariably makes us detach a lot from some of those other aspects of ourselves. And that inherently is what we end up finding really challenging.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, kind of the joke is, especially amongst police officers that come through the program, some of them during the program, the emotions at some point may hit and it just punched them in the face. And it's something maybe they haven't, experienced a lot of, or definitely never in front of, 12 other people they just met. And they'll joke and be like, I'd much rather be in a gunfight right now than feeling what I'm feeling right now. And I honestly think, you believe that. That's this is so hard for you. Like, put me over there doing that rather than doing this. But it is hard for us.
Yeah. And I think even just humans in general, like it takes a lot of courage to be introspective and to not only like take a really hard look at yourself and your actions and your behavior and your treatment of people and all that kind of thing, but then to wrestle with it and acknowledge it and then go, I want to put in the work to do better. Like, I genuinely don't believe that a lot of people either want to do it, are interested in it, because I think sometimes it's easier not to.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they may think, they would look at it as that it is easier. But if they really were reflective, it wouldn't be. But and that takes, Erin, it takes consistency. It takes making that a daily practice of this is what I'm going to set out to change, right? I mean, I used to be the person who was like, it was always, it's my way or the highway. You like get on board or you're getting kicked off. But now, with any difficult situation, it's always like, okay, well, what could I do differently? Let me look at, where maybe I misstepped or whatever. And if we can take on that type of perspective, especially as first responders, how much better we'd be for our communities, our organization, all of that, our families, all of that, and what a change it would be.
Yeah, absolutely. And as well, I think it also involves being able to forgive yourself and being able to have compassion for yourself, for prior versions of yourself, which from sort of, previous episodes we've had and conversations and even like the things that you're talking about now, like not only did you have to have like difficult conversations, say like, with your boys to go, you know what, as like a 3 and a 4-year-old, you were not up for hearing like my version of SOPs and you were not interested in following them. And I know that now and I can't go back and change it, but I can tell you that I recognize that now and I seek your forgiveness, but I also be able to have, able to move on. I have to forgive myself and show myself that kind of compassion. And that again is a challenging process, like you were saying.
Having self-compassion is one of the most difficult things for us to do, for sure.
It sure is.
Yeah.
And so we've mentioned it a lot, the idea and the concept of post-traumatic growth, and like you said, we know that it's out there, and I don't want to take anything away from the magic of the Struggle Well training and program and all that kind of thing, but maybe can you give us what either your interpretation is or the way that you've been taught to explain it to like a layman as to what post-traumatic growth is?
Well, we obviously can all agree that living this human life, there's going to be struggle, right? There's going to be incredibly difficult times, maybe way up here, way down there. Post-traumatic growth starts with the philosophy or the perspective that we first understand that, okay, we know it's coming. I'll paraphrase it because I can't quote it, but there's a poem by Rumi talking about, every day if you can wake up and know that there's going to be some knocks at the door. It could be, good things. It could be horrible things. You can choose how you're going to greet them. But the encouragement is, even in the difficult times, greet them, to be prepared of what that's going to be, because I know I have to go through this no matter what, right?
Yeah.
I can either choose to go through it kicking and screaming, bury my head and not learn through it, or
Yeah.
I can choose to go through it, pushing through, understanding that I'm going to learn something during this difficult time. And on the other side of that, I don't sit there and I don't reflect, I don't, stay focused on the past. It's just used as a perspective. We like to talk about, if you can think about everything in your past, you have the rear view mirror in your car, right? If we're driving, we can't drive and go forward if we're just looking in the rear view mirror, right? That's just for a little perspective, right? To know where we came from, because we have to know where we came from. We have to know what we went through to know where we're going. And then we have big windshield, like eyes open, eyes forward to go through.
Yeah.
Every single time you do that, you get stronger and stronger. But that also comes with a couple different things. It comes with, your daily practices through regulation, and also the support network that you have around you. Those are two of the most important things. If I'm around a bunch of people that every single day, I always joke, like, the people you walk by at the police department or the firehouse, and you're like, hey man, how you doing today? Well, it's just another fucking day in paradise.
Living the dream.
The dream, they're being sarcastic, right? And, or, if you're around all that, that's just what you're going to live. It's what's going to be your life. And then taking daily practices for yourself of taking time to, whether that's getting up in the morning and meditating, doing some sort of movement. I see you posting your stuff about the exercising, whatever that looks for you, taking the moment to enjoy outside, reflecting, journaling, all of it.
Yeah.
And your gratitude. I start all of my days now with a gratitude. What is that going to be? And then also, what is my intention for the day? Because then that is it's holding myself accountable. This is what today is going to look like. Not, it's going to look like this if everything goes right. It's going to look like this no matter what comes, because life is going to punch us in the face. It's just how well you can take that punch. So that's like a brief, like layman's, like that's what we would hope, and because the struggle's coming. It's just up to you if you want to grow through that, or if you want to just waste those experiences. And I would beg people, don't waste the trauma. We can use those experiences to grow, not only for ourselves, for our children, for our families, for our organization, for our communities, all of that.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. And I have sort of, again, because I am a giant nerd, when I read this delightful book a few years ago now, I have like some sort of cue cards with like a couple of I know you can feel free to mock me in person and then post interview, that's okay. But so I think I guess the one that really resonated with me when it comes to post-traumatic growth, and it was to the point of why I wrote it down, was because I can't remember if it's a quote from the book or I put it in my own language. It looks like it's probably written better than I could ever write, but it's the reconstruction of your belief system into a new system that didn't exist in any substantial form in the past. And often that can be because the trauma we experienced shakes something within us to our core, that either something we believed about the world, about maybe a person in a relationship, about our anticipated future. It gets shaken, it gets torn down, it gets something, like we get to be made incredibly to feel unsafe or something like that. And it really, I think it forces some kind of like a reckoning. But once you get through that process of it, you kind of come out better and stronger and more evolved, and just almost like a better version of you in the aftermath that wouldn't have eventuated had the trauma not occurred.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, it offers you many new opportunities, right? New possibilities. It gives you the opportunity for deeper relationships. For instance, for most of my life, my my father to me was not a great figure for me. But some of this change has happened to me with growth. I've gained a new perspective of understanding, you know, why he was who he was. Why did he do the things he do? Looking back, it's given me new perspective, new possibilities in how I view him. Of
Mm-hmm.
And that can be for people that my father's passed away, but for people that are, you know, still in your life, what does that do for you? That deeper understanding of what's going on,
Yeah.
so incredibly important. That again, I mean, it's up to us, right? We can just stay stuck in that mode of blaming everything or every situation. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of trauma in this world, right?
Yeah.
Even first responders and veterans, like we don't hold the tickets to that. Like it's all over, right? So um, it's trying to, you know, shift your mindset of how you deal with these difficult situations to
Mm-hmm.
come out the other side and go to grow. That's why, like, we kind of joke around, you know, that I know the word resilience gets used a lot, and it was used a lot in law enforcement training, veterans training, all this. But, you know,
Mm.
resilience, if you look it up, there's a couple different definitions, but it talks about returning to previous form, right? So if I go through this very difficult time, a lot of us will say, if I can just get through this, you know, and go back to the way it was, you're literally telling yourself, I'm going to waste all this time. I just got to get through it.
Yeah.
The shift in perspective of looking for growth, like, well, I'm not going to waste all this. If I'm going through it, I'm going to learn something from this situation. And I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to get on the other side. I'm going to look back and be like, hey, I got through that. You know, I can get through the next thing. And
Yeah.
it continues this growth pattern versus, I think it was um, Dr. Brooke. I know she's like in our whole group through, yeah,
Yeah.
right. And one time, I don't know, we went back and forth with one another. She says, or maybe she posted, you know, so many times my first responders walk into my office are like, I just want to go back to the way I was before this call happened. She's like, no, that's we don't want that. We want you to,
Yeah.
like, I'm sorry this happened to you, but what can you learn from this? And
Yeah.
how can you grow during this very difficult time? So
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes so much sense. And I think as well, and maybe it's something that either you can reflect on with your own personal experience, or maybe with the seeing the transition and the transformation of the people that you're working with now at Boulder Crest. I feel like, as much as the growth is an important component, I feel like mixed in with that too would be a lot of grief, a grief of the old version of themselves, or even just like you're saying, you don't necessarily want to return to that who you were before then, but I can imagine there would be a grief process that, even though you kind of go, oh, I might be in a better place after I go through this evolution, I feel like sometimes there would be an element of grief, or the need to grieve that old part of themselves, or the old life, or that old relationship that generally, maybe for circumstances out of their control, has been sort of stripped away from them.
yeah, 100%. There's always going to be, in my opinion, grief involved, right?
Mm.
Because a lot of what happens when we're going through those times, we're not dealing with situations well, right? Or something happened to us, you know, that wasn't that we were a victim of, or whatever that may be. Um, we just, a lot of times our sense is like, oh, I wish that didn't happen. I want to go back and change things, whatever that is. I mean, it's, you know, this is, you know, we can't pull it back. That
Yeah.
the ship has already sailed, right?
Yeah.
So again, this is the power of choice. You know, attitude and effort. You have the decision. It's up to you. Like, you can keep in this current state of where you are, of reflecting on nothing but the past and being this constant grief or angry or whatever it is, or you can accept, like, okay, this is done. I can't pull back what happened to me or what I did to someone, or maybe I didn't do that I should have done, whatever that looks like. And you can go eyes forward. Use that for perspective because it helps us in our growth, right? But we
Mm-hmm.
have to keep moving forward. So yeah, keep not being stuck in that past, because a lot of times we explain it like, when a trauma hits or a difficult situation, uh, we tend to just stay stuck there. And then how many years do we just keep revolving? Well, this happened and this happened. You remember that? You know, I could have stayed stuck in, you know, the big call, you know, in
Mm-hmm.
2016 for me. Oh,
Yeah.
you know, that happened and this is why. And, you know, a sense of me was like that at times where I'm like, well, I've been diagnosed with PTSD. I could stay there and just use that as an excuse, but I choose not to. I had the power of choice and I chose to move beyond that. So, but there's going to be grieving. It's not like there's nothing about any of our training or any like stuff that you do that we're going to tell you like, hey, this is going to be all easy. It's not, right?
I think if it's easy, you're not doing it right.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's like you choose your hard. You can either choose to stay in the hard space where you are, or you can choose the hard work of going forward. Right.
Yeah.
Life is not hard. It's hard work, but if you can change your perspective, just how miraculous the journey can be from there, even during the difficult times,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you were saying, we were literally just talking before we hit record, and I was saying how I had written something last night and today about like personal agency. Yeah. And it's like that living with intention, living with purpose, our free will to make those choices and decisions, but also having to live with the consequences of those choices. And whether that choice is to do something and engage in something to try to, help yourself cope better, feel better, live better, or the choice is to do nothing. And like you're saying, stay stuck or stay miserable and, grumble and, be that crusty old member who, had the opportunity and chose not to.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, we have to it is somewhat of a challenge, right? Again, that's why I like our program, the training, like it's up to you. Like we're definitely going to give you these things that, again, no promises. Life's going to be easy because it's not going to be, but here's the challenge to you to step up to the plate and do what you need to do to, gain that new perspective and move through and experience growth like is actually there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, but before I move on and ask you a couple more bits and pieces about Boulder Crest, I've also got it written down here that there's like, I guess, 5 types or 5 sort of elements of our life that can sort of involve and be integrated with post-traumatic growth. And it's been a while since I've looked at these, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it can be personal strength, improved relationships with others, a newfound appreciation of life, new paths or possibilities, and new understanding of life's meaning and purpose, or kind of like a spiritual change. Or is that maybe reflected in like all of it?
Yeah, these are what we call the 5 domains of personal growth. So as you go through each one of those, you can understand those deeper relationships, a new spiritual, sense of, self, whatever that means, to you for each of those. And that's our challenge at the end. This is what post-traumatic growth looks like. And this is all these new things that can happen if you let it happen. So,
yeah. No, that makes sense. And so talk to me about, maybe anyone who has listened to our conversation and it has kind of sparked something in them to kind of go, this is what I need, or I'm really interested in this. What does the process look like for someone wanting to perhaps, come and be involved in one of these immersive programs that Boulder Crest
Absolutely. Has? So go to bouldercrest.org. And you can go in there. I would really encourage people to go through. There's a resource page. You can go. There's like short videos. You can learn about, different, concepts and things that we do teach. And then if you're interested, there's a programs tab, and you can go in there and you can apply for either first responder or veteran programs. And it's a great opportunity. It's 100% paid for. You just got to get to your airport, and we take care of everything from there. Buying your plane ticket and all that. So it's a great opportunity for first responders and veterans to take advantage of it. And it's, we have amazing donors that, it is their mission to take care of our veterans and first responders. So that's the only way that we can do it. So, I encourage them, and people can always reach out to me if they have more questions. I'm happy to talk to them and, steer them towards the right direction.
That's awesome. And that's so, I mean, absolutely incredible, because I know that some of the challenges with first responders reaching out for help and all that kind of thing, like the financial aspect of, they don't want to go through the EAP, their insurance might not cover, the particular like therapist or inpatient program or something that they feel like they desperately need. That's remarkable that Boulder Crest are
Yes.
able to offer that.
Yeah, and if your
Um,
agency, if you're trying to get it approved through your agency for training, we
mhm.
have a form we send, because it's 90 days worth of training, and so we have a pre-written letter that explains all that, so they don't if people question like, well, where are you going, and so
Yeah.
it's not, again, it's not treatment, it's not therapy, it's actual training. So
Mm-hmm. And that makes sense. And I guess maybe for someone who is a little doubtful either of what this, post-traumatic growth stuff might be, or I guess what would be your advice to someone who is either like a little dubious, or who you would sort of recommend this kind of, does someone sort of maybe have to be in a particular place before you think that they're ready to engage in this kind of training?
yeah, for sure. So we're definitely not a crisis intervention program by any means. So we definitely we have resources if people are struggling, with traumatic brain injury from our veterans, our
Yeah.
first responders had TBIs, substance abuse. We have partner organizations. We would recommend you to go to those first, and we can
Okay.
get you set up with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I like to put it, you have to be on some sort of a journey, right? You've made this decision that, you know, what I've done so far is not enough, or I can't figure out what's going on. You have to be in search of it, right? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
Because if you come there and you're just like, okay, I guess I'll go try something else with not a good attitude, because you have to have that choice that, like, yes, I'm making a commitment. And we challenge people, right? You're making a commitment to yourself and your teammates that you're there with, that you are, I know myself personally so many times, okay, I'm going to get better. I'm going to do things differently. But my actions didn't follow that. Like, we are challenging you. You are ready to make that commitment to finally make this change and shift your perspective and move
Mm-hmm.
forward. So, yeah, I would encourage you to do that. And it's not, it's a selection process. So, people call in, they fill out an application. We do interviews with them and
Mm-hmm.
see if, they're a right fit for the program. So
Yeah.
that's what we do. So, um, yeah, I'd say if they're on that journey, that they're ready to make a meaningful change in their life, and they're going to commit to it,
Yeah.
for not even just our 90 days of the program, meaning like this, you are ready to make a lifelong change. If
Yeah.
you are willing to do that, then you are a perfect candidate for one of our programs.
Yeah. So they're essentially like, you will give them the tools, but they have to buy in to
Yeah,
like utilize those tools and be shown the right way how to use them and
absolutely.
execute it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And and not to get like too much into the weeds, and if it's not appropriate to ask, that's okay. But how often do these programs run? Because I know that there's one in Virginia, and I think, is it Arizona and Texas, or
So we have, of our Boulder Crest has our locations of Virginia, Texas, and Arizona.
okay.
And then we have many partner organizations throughout the country that also deliver some of our programs as well.
Okay.
So, based on, if you come through, our website, you're going to find our programs, and then, there's other partner organizations. Sometimes people get directed there; they'll find the same curriculum
Mm-hmm.
delivered, per our standards of Boulder Crest standards, and
Yep.
so, yeah. And I can't guarantee you like where you go. It just
Mm.
depends on, what team you get set up with. So, most of the things that I do, I'm running out of Texas right now. So I travel there, once a month, and,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm leaving again this Saturday to go do a program next week. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And so for like, but depending on like which location or that kind of thing, would it be that there's sort of like a program running sort of like once a month, or like it kind of really just depends on
Yeah, I mean, there are,
staffing and all of the things?
like out of Texas, we're running programs with different teams almost every week.
Wow.
So and then, so our other organizations, so or other locations, Arizona, Virginia, and then our partner organizations, there's
Yeah.
teams all over the country running these
Yeah.
programs. So
Okay. And then when I interviewed Vance, he said that you guys were referred to as like a guide. Is that sort of
yeah,
the
they do. They refer to us as guides. We're not instructors by any means. We like to say that we're just a little bit further in the process than you,
yeah,
and so we're there. We're not there to pull you along. We're not there to point the way. We're there to guide you and just walk alongside you. And
yeah,
that's really what we do. We still are figuring this out ourselves.
mm-hmm,
We are daily practicing the things that
yeah,
we are teaching and training. Because
yeah,
if we weren't, we wouldn't. We'd be the students would pick up on it that we're phonies, right?
yeah,
So we live it,
yeah,
and
yeah.
we
First responders smell bullshit pretty easily.
for 100%. No, you're right, and I think that's what makes a really good guide is that your connection through the passion about the training. That is
Mm,
that's what gets through to the students that hey, we're seeing, you know, these guides walking us through this and they're obviously passionate about it and they're living this. And I
mm-hmm.
want some of that. I want to feel what they're feeling. So that's what we try
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
do.
that makes sense. And I guess probably the last question before I let you go would be when you as a guide, do the guides work like are you a crew that then does the same like what am I trying to say? Like say it's you and four other guides, do you guys always do it together, or the guides are paired up with different people all of the time?
Yeah. Yeah. We work with a team. We're assigned with a
Okay.
team. So yeah. Yep. So it's
Okay.
kind of a group and which I love that aspect about it.
Yeah.
It's still the same. It's a team environment. You come up with
I
your own
was just
individual team
thinking that
style.
kind of, and it also, I think, relates back to, you as like a SWAT commander. When I was a detective, I worked on a crew. Like, I love that crew dynamic. And I think that would be incredibly powerful too for the people who come on that journey to kind of go like, oh, like, look, like, yeah, like these guys, like they're walking the talk. And like you're saying, like, they're just like a few steps ahead of me. Like, I think that's excellent part of the program to kind of go like, this is the whatever analogy, like the proof in the pudding. Like, we believe so hard in these that we've gone through it and now we're here where we've come back because we believe so wholeheartedly in this process that we want to now contribute to your experience.
Yeah, that's what it is. I mean, everybody that's doing this, they want to come back and do it because they know
Yes.
how it changed their life. And that's why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I mean, I had that perfectly good thing going with my arena, plenty,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
doing my thing. But no, I just am so passionate about it that I wanted to give back to our communities because I truly do believe this is part of the piece of the
The
puzzle to
next
get the
thing.
culture and everything
Yes.
completely shifted. So,
Yeah. No, I love that for you. And I know like you said, you probably more in like the wind down process for my arena. And as I may or may not have sent a text message to Travis demanding that I can still purchase some t-shirts because my husband stole my one and it's hard to actually ply it off his body at the moment. So I can barely get it to wash it. So he's claimed that. So I'm going to have to steal a couple more
I
from
will
Travis
get
in the
you
meantime.
t-shirts for sure.
Do you have any more speaking engagements coming up that I know you partnered with? Is it Blue Grit Wellness? Is it Eric? Eric
Yeah,
from?
I did something. So a couple of months ago, I went up to the Seattle area and did something up there.
Mm-hmm.
And then in September, I'm actually doing a conference in Montana.
Oh, you're
So
going back to Montana? Awesome.
so with three therapists that I was working with in that state,
Yep.
they're doing it's through a grant program. One of the chiefs of police. This had been on the radar for a long time. They wanted a wellness. We're calling it a wellness summit. So
Mm-hmm.
we're going to do 2 days of just I'll do a little bit of, my stuff with my arena, and then we're having other first responders from the state of Montana give their story. And then we'll have some therapists talking about just how to incorporate culturally competent therapists within an organization and how that works. Also, how to help families of first responders, and just a whole bunch of stuff in 2 days. So that's about my last one for now, at least. So yeah.
That sounds awesome. That summit, please share details with me in the lead up, so I can share about that, because that sounds incredible. Are you still open to doing stuff that hasn't already been pre-planned, or are you just kind of like, this is where I'm at right now, and I want to focus on Boulder Crest?
So for right now, I've shut down for 2025, just because, there's so much work involved in this, and I'm just very passionate about it. Yeah. So not that anybody told me or Emily told me anything like, hey, you can't do both.
Yeah.
It's just,
it's a balance. It's a life balance.
And I'm an incredibly passionate, loyal person. So if I've decided like this is the route I'm going right now, I want to give everything to what I can with this program and with Boulder Crest. Because again, I know it works, and I'm seeing, lives being changed, and what more could I ask for? So
that's awesome. No, I love that for you, and I will stop pestering you about it. So I'm gonna question without notice, and I know, right? I don't remember your original answer from our first podcast, so I'm going to have to go back and have a listen. But I normally end the podcast with asking, what do you do to hold space for your darkness? And I guess maybe what I'm wondering is whether your answer will have changed from 2 years ago.
What do I do to hold space for my darkness? It's daily consistency of being grateful for everything that I've been through, and looking at the little things and just taking time to reflect upon that. Yeah, so many years of my life I was going 1,000 miles an hour and didn't pay attention to that stuff. And so I keep that space. That's one thing that we definitely preach, like taking time and taking that space and holding it for ourselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, it probably has changed.
I know. I wish I'd listened. Now I'm going to have to go back. Yep. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Travis. We are, in case anyone's listening, we are filming this on the Wednesday, the 18th of June. And so we are smack bang in the middle of Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, PTSD Awareness Month. Travis and I both would wake up daily and see every time a first responder takes their life. It's a challenging realm to be involved in because of the kind of heartbreak that can come about with it. But you are someone that I personally really look up to. I think it's so admirable and inspirational how willing you have been and graciously share all of the parts, the good and the bad. And I love that you have gone in this direction. I can see and hear and feel how authentically it just feels like exactly the right thing for you. And I really just want to say thank you for everything you were doing, for being one of my first guests, and now, taking the time to come back on. And I know you're a busy man, and just thank you for everything that you're doing to try to not just talk about it, but be part of the solution in terms of making it better for our first responder population.
Well, thank you very much. That was very kind of you to say, but it is truly my honor to do this. Like I was just telling someone today, like, it is probably one of the most rewarding things I've ever done in my life. Even like when we're getting ready to start a program, it rivals if not overtakes it, the sense of excitement I would get going to one of the most exciting SWAT calls. I mean, that's what I feel inside. So it's a passion. I'm happy to be doing it. So thank you.
That's awesome. All right. I'm going to let you go and enjoy the rest of your day. All right. Thank you so much. This has been another episode of I Will Hold Space for Your Darkness. I've been your host, Erin Jane. And as always, let me listen in a way you've never been heard. Cheers.
Hi guys, it's Erin Jane here. Firstly, thank you for listening to I Will Hold Space for Your Darkness. This podcast really is for you, the listener. And I hope you're finding as much value in listening to these conversations as I am in having them. If you'd like to offer any feedback, suggest a subject matter, are interested in being a podcast guest, or would like to get in contact to receive first responder life and wellness coaching services, please reach out. You can find me on Instagram at Erin Jane Coaching or the dedicated podcast account, ErinJane_Darkness Podcast, or my website, www.erinjanecoaching.com. I look forward to hearing from you, and I'm so grateful to have you as part of this darkness community. Cheers.